It's the Unhappy Hour.
Broadcasting to you live from the Milky Way galaxy, the solar system, planet Earth, North America, the United States of America, California, in Los Angeles, to be specific. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Unhappy Hour. Yes, I'm an Indians, Cavs, and Browns fan, so I've never celebrated a championship in my lifetime, hence the name, the Unhappy Hour. But hey, you know what? Johnny Manziel, a killer defense on the Browns. Let's see how it goes. Let's talk about the Cavs. I don't know, the Kevin Love deal was completed today. LeBron James coming back town to team up with Kyrie Irving and Deion Waiters and Mike Miller and Ray Allen and Sean Marion. And holy crap, we have a team chasing a championship in Cleveland right now with the Cavaliers. And the Indians are sitting there right at 500. They just got to get hot for about another week or two and just go on a tear and take that wild card position just like they did last year. So it's not too unhappy for me. But it is a different time for me. Fantasy football season. Yes, I've been in 3 leagues, and I've done fairly well the times that I've played. And we're going to bring in special draft guru Mike Murray to the program in just a second. But real quick, if you haven't checked out our homepage, please do so. It's at thenewamericanmedia.com. And on the bottom right of that is our Facebook and our Twitter. Do a search on Facebook for The New American Media with spaces in between and like the page. Or you could click on that, and on Twitter, we're at American_media_. Finally, make sure you subscribe, youtube.com/thenewamericanmedia. All right, this is the time we've all been waiting for. I think today's even National NBA, NBA. It's like National Fantasy Football Draft Day in Vegas, like at the Hard Rock. My friend flew out there. So I'm a co-owner of a team of high rollers. And I don't know what leagues you're in, but when you get in a league with high rollers, it's kind of insane. And so I'm co-sponsoring, I'm co-owner of that team, and we have a draft coming up in a couple of hours. So I said, all right, it's that time of year. I'm sure other people have questions. Where do you take LaShawn McCoy? At what number do you take your first quarterback? Should you even bother drafting a kicker? All these weird questions. So I'm bringing in Mike Murray to the program. Mike, welcome back to the show. I think it's been about a year. Good to have you, sir.
Yeah, definitely good to be back on the show. Kind of getting used to doing this whole fantasy thing with you guys every year. It's definitely a good time. So, hey-o!
Hey-o! So how many years are we on now? I forget. Last year, this year, did we do 3 years ago as well?
Yeah, I think we started at least 3 years ago. I can recall the first fantasy show I did with you gentlemen was a lot of fun, and it's certainly been good to do it on an annual basis, so I'm glad to be here.
Heck yeah, and I'm thrilled about that, because what I want this show to be, you can tune on any network. Oh, by the way, every Simpsons episode ever, Mike, did you see that FXX is doing that?
Yes, me and the wife were actually watching some Simpsons earlier, and
Dude.
It was the episode where they bring in the pool into the middle of the street.
Millpool. He signs his cast, Millpool. Oh, yeah. I love that one. That's one where Bart thinks he witnesses Flanders killing his wife next door, right? And he goes crazy. Yeah. He breaks his leg.
Hey, Brian, just one quick basketball question before we get into fantasy football. You mentioned the Cavs got Ray Allen. Is that true?
Okay. Hold on one second. Let me wrap up this point. We'll get right to Ray Allen. What I was saying is, and I got sidetracked on the Simpsons with FXX, making sure you're watching, because the Conan O'Brien years are the funniest. I watched the one where where Homer goes to college. Oh, where he blows up the nuclear plant and they send him back to college. It's hilarious. The first 6 seasons of The Simpsons, especially seasons 2 through 5, are just absolutely blockbuster. Go take a look at them. Every Simpsons episode ever. They're not even a sponsor, but go check out FXX because it's awesome and it made me laugh like hell. Now, what I was saying before that is that I want the New American Media to be a place where me and my buddies get together to talk sports. That's the point. We should have a fight. You know what we should do, Mike? I don't know if you would be interested at all, and I'm not sure if I could work it in, but maybe now we could do a fantasy football radio show I would like to do one on a weekly basis. I don't know if you would or not, but we do the drafts special. And what I was saying is that I want this place at thenewamericanmedia.com, I want this to be a place where we just have good conversations about politics and try to figure out better ways to run our planet. places where you can talk smack with your buddies about fantasy football. And Mike will tell you in a second how our championship game turned out last year. I'm sure he cannot wait to let you know. What was it, 0.4 points, Mike? 0.6 points?
It was a solid half point that I took home the championship with.
A solid half point. It was Tony Gonzalez with an extra 5 yards, and I would have won the fantasy league again in the championship last year against. And it was like the last game on the last day. It was like a Monday night game. The Falcons were playing. All of our players had played, and it was that one player. You're just watching him creep up. Is this going to be it? And stopped like 5 yards short of winning the damn thing, or 6 yards short. Or no, it wasn't 6 yards. It was point. Whatever the case, I don't even give a damn. Yeah, so Mike's going to tell you all about this, but let's get to Ray Allen. Yeah, the Cavs, we talked about this on our show, The Unhappy Hour with NBA scout Zach Barris, and I'm going to upload it in a second here as soon as I'm done with this one. But he was saying that Ray Allen is waiting and Sean Marion are waiting for this trade to go through. So now you're going to see Sean Marion, he's already publicly said, or at least reports are saying that he's chosen the Cavaliers. So Sean Marion, with NBA championship experience and good defensive ability and flexibility, a veteran, strong presence in the locker room, is joining the team. And Ray Allen has been, air quote, pondering his 19th season, I think, and he will be coming back, but he wanted to make sure that the Sean Marion signing happened after the Kevin Love signing happened, because, you know, he's an older player. He just wants to make sure he's walking into the situation he thinks he is. So, no, it's not official. The Kevin Love deal is official, and we're going to see Sean Marion and Ray Allen. Those dominoes are going to fall today or tomorrow, probably.
Could you imagine a lineup of LeBron James, Kevin Love, Kyrie Irving, Ray Allen, and Sean Marion? That's pretty sick.
You could also have Deion Waiters and Anderson Varejao and Mike Miller.
Yeah, that's true. Now you're getting into some names again. I'm more of the football guy rather than the basketball guy. You'll need to bring in someone else for that sport.
Absolutely, buddy. But hey, Mike, that might be the case. But don't act like you weren't a huge basketball fan back in the day, and you weren't really good at it, because you were.
Well, I was a huge fan in the Jordan, Pippen, Karl Malone days. Like, I can't even keep up with all these players anymore and what have you. So I've kind of stepped away from watching basketball that often.
Yeah, well, for the listener, let me get this out of the way. Mike and I grew up across the street from each other. From what age did we know each other, Mike?
Oh, geez, probably third grade, so whatever that age is, maybe, I don't even know.
Your third grade would be my second grade. He was always 1 year ahead of me. I'm surprised you didn't get held back and that I could catch you. I kept waiting for that to happen. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
No, but I had a basketball hoop put in my little driveway. It was like a little 2-car driveway, and we would play basketball there. Lord Almighty, Mike, how many games of horse? How many hours do you think we spent playing basketball?
Well, essentially, every single night we were either playing basketball or playing football in the backyard. So it was basically a nightly occurrence. So it was good times.
And then we were also practicing the curveball and the knuckleball and the slurve and the slider and the change up and trying to locate the fastball. I mean, knocking planks out of our fence in my backyard. We did that too. Yeah,
I was just gonna say, I believe we were using a tennis ball one day, and I threw a pitch, and you whipped at it, and it hit the fence, and it knocked out like a knot, and we were like, shouldn't that have happened with a real baseball as opposed to a tennis ball? So that was a funny moment for sure.
Yeah, it was. Mike pitched a no-hitter back in the day. He was what they called effectively wild, and because Mike was a year older than me, and just how it worked out, I never played a game where I had to hit off of Mike before, and I stepped into the batter's box and I dropped a bunt on the third base side. It landed perfectly in the dust. I ran it out. I'm 1-for-1 lifetime against Mike, but he was a hell of a pitcher back in the day as well. So anyway, I just want to get that out there because I want this place at the New American Media to be where you bring your buddies in to talk, because we don't see each other as much. We like a few updates on Facebook and Twitter and stuff, but it's not a real relationship. It's not a real friendship. You got to see each other from time to time if you can, You got to talk at least, not just a text message in between, whatever. So let's get into this here. Yeah, this is year 3, and I'm in this situation now where I'm in 3 leagues. My first question to you is, one league has 8 teams, one has 10, and one has 12 in the league. How should your draft strategy differ depending on what type of league you're in? What things should you consider?
Well, the only, there's a few different main kind of leagues. You've got your standard league, PPR, which is point per reception league, and then you've got your auction league. And you can also kind of tie in a keeper league to any of those, if you will. So as far as strategy, in standard leagues, there's a major strategy. PPR leagues, obviously, the running backs and wide receivers get 1 point per reception. So certain running backs that catch a lot of balls, or certain wide receivers that catch a lot of balls, like Julian Edelman or Wes Welker type guys, they're more valuable in those kind of leagues. And then auction leagues, that's your thing. It's just a matter of getting bang for the buck. You want to maximize your roster talent with that $200 that you get allocated to start the draft. So it really just depends on the type of league you're in, pretty much.
Okay, so I guess then when you have 12 teams in your league, okay, so those are the basics: standard, PPR, auction, keeper, all that jazz. Okay, those are the technical, mathematical components of the show of the season that you're going to be getting into. Now, what I'm getting at is, how many good quarterbacks are there in this year's draft? How many good running backs are there? Let's go down the list, because at what point, if you have 12 teams picking before it gets back to you, when do you need to grab your decent guys first, and when do you worry about depth? And does that alter how, the Drew Brees, the Demaryius Thomas, you throw some players in there, the Peyton Manning, the Megatron. In what leagues is it more important to have one great quarterback and you got to take him in your first round? Which others can you wait 2 and 3 rounds to get? There's a lot of questions in here, so take it wherever you want.
Oh, yeah. There's certain positions, like this year, for instance, quarterback and wide receiver are extremely deep. I'm looking at Chi right here. I'd be happy with all the way probably down to Phillip Rivers at number 14. Am I going to be, obviously there's a major difference in Peyton Manning and Phillip Rivers, but at the end of the year, if Phillip Rivers scores 260 points, Manning puts up 310. If you can fill those other roster spots before taking a quarterback with, solid running back depth on your bench or wide receivers or what have you, and then take a quarterback late, that can kind of, in the long run, you might get more points overall for your team. As far as the league size, or 8, 10, or 12 teams, obviously if the larger number of teams in the league, 12 for instance, obviously the rosters are going to be a little bit thinner. So, 18 league, everyone's going to have stacked rosters. So in that case, you don't need to build depth as much, because most of the players on your team are going to be studs, or most of them should be, at least in the 18 league. So a lot of variables there, but this year, quarterback and wide receiver super deep. In my eyes, there's no reason to take a quarterback in the first couple of rounds, unless you're really gung-ho on Peyton Manning or Brees or Rodgers. Other than that, you probably wait for a while. So.
Gotcha. Now, you said it's extremely deep at quarterback, 14 down to Rivers. What about wide receiver? How deep are we talking this year? Because let me preface that. I didn't ask the question correctly. I meant to say it this way. And especially at wide receiver in an extremely deep class, we have Josh Gordon, last year's league leader. Is he even going to get drafted in a 12-team league, in an 8-team league? Is that even going to happen, and what number can we go down to there? Because it's going to be weird to watch it without Josh Gordon tearing it up. He was on my team last year, and I really got used to it as a Browns fan.
Yeah, Josh Gordon obviously could potentially be out for the entire year. So it just depends on, does he get drafted at all? If he does, it could be maybe your last pick or second to last pick. If you think he's, going to be worth a spot on your roster, or do you chance, just kind of leaving him out there after the draft and seeing if you can snipe is the term I'll use to try to pick him up as soon as you hear that maybe he wasn't suspended or what have you. So, he's kind of one of those guys. It just depends on your gut feeling. how much research you've done as far as his, I guess, his court case or what have you, and how much you've been looking into the news on him. So
yeah, all I know is Ray Rice knocks his girlfriend out, drags her by the hair like a caveman. You know what? We're going to slap your wrist for 2 games. And you got Josh Gordon over here. Yeah, the boy likes to smoke marijuana. He's not roided up. We're not talking McGuire, Sosa, A-Rod, totally juicing up, cheating for competitive advantage. I don't really see the competitive advantage with this. You have domestic abuse happening on camera, and that's a 2 game. I mean, could you when you're lining these things up against each other, does an 8 game or a 6 game or a 16 game suspension make any sense?
Well, obviously, if we're not talking football, someone...
No, we're talking life and penalties, and knowing that the collective bargaining agreement addressed marijuana, but it didn't address domestic abuse, so they kind of really, really underdid making up domestic abuse on the go, and they in their contract it says they have to be ridiculously harsh for marijuana if it's a second offense. I'm not talking on the field. I'm talking totally off the field.
Yeah, well, I was going to kind of interweave the two. In general, if someone beats up their girlfriend versus they smoke a little marijuana, obviously, I think the Ray Rice should get a bigger, suspension or what have you. But I think probably what the league is looking at is Josh Gordon is a multiple repeat offender for, I don't have the list in front of me, but I think he's gotten in trouble several times in the last 2 or 3 years. So I think they're trying to say, listen, if you're going to keep doing this and doing this and doing this, then the penalty is going to get steeper. But overall, I feel that Ray Rice should have gotten a lot more than 2 games.
Yeah, it seems that way to me. So what number, without knowing Josh Gordon? Let's take Josh Gordon. No, let's leave it as is. He's available to be drafted. Who are the top echelon of receivers this year? What number can you go down to?
Wow. I think I'm looking at the list right here. Wide receiver is unbelievably deep. Number 1 wide receiver on your team, I'd be happy with, anywhere from number 1 to, which is Calvin Johnson, obviously, down to maybe 13 or 14, Fitzgerald or Garcon.
You had Keenan Allen last year. He did pretty good for you.
Yeah, but I like Keenan Allen this year, but he's done it for 1 year.
Percy Harvin's another guy that could be interesting. We forget how amazing he was. He's just injury prone. We said that about Peyton Manning, and look what happened to him. He came out and lit it up. I mean, isn't Percy Harvin a little low at 20?
He's low at 20. I just kind of feel I don't see the Seattle offense. Yeah, I mean Russell Wilson he'll have a good year, but is one of those guys going to end up with 100 catches for 1,500 and 20 touchdowns? Probably not. So I see Percy Harvin maybe getting to 1,000 yards, maybe 5 touchdowns. I always liked him better in Minnesota where they used him out of the slot. He's more of a complementary receiver, and he was able to split down the middle. I'm not sure that I like him as their number 1 receiver. So, I mean, I like him. I'd be more happy with him as a number 2 receiver or even in the flex. I'd be okay with him.
So Calvin Johnson, he still has a lot left in the tank?
Yeah, Calvin Johnson's an absolute stud. There's no reason that every year he doesn't get 1,500 yards and at least 12 touchdowns and probably at least 80 to 90 catches plus. So, yeah, Calvin Johnson, there's no stopping it right now. So he's certainly your number 1.
Jordy Nelson, Randall Cobb, who do you like?
Definitely go with Jordy Nelson. Aaron Rodgers has developed a major chemistry with him. I love Randall Cobb. He's got unbelievable physical skills. He's really fast. I see Cobb having a very good year, but if I have to pick between the two, definitely Jordy.
Deshaun Jackson, how's he going to fit over there with RG3?
That's a tough one. I kind of compare it to Chicago, where you got Alshon Jeffrey and Brandon Marshall. You got 2 studs. Yeah. I still think Garcon gets the workload. I think a lot of people might be thinking Deshaun will have a good year. In my eye, he's more of a maybe just above average year in my eyes.
Golden Tate, first year.
Golden Tate, I like him. I'm gonna say probably more in a PPR league, just because I really like obviously Calvin, and they've got 2 great running backs, Bush and Bell, who should get a lot of reception. So if I have to take Golden Tate, I'm more happy maybe as a number 2 or a flex, probably a flex in a PPR league specifically with him.
Eric Decker was a little off. What do you expect from him this year?
Well, if you got Geno Smith throwing you the ball, I'm not thrilled about it. I think Decker was probably, his talent was probably coming from the fact that he had a Hall of Famer throwing the ball to him. So if I take Eric Decker, probably at the flex or on my bench, I'd be happy there.
Yeah, because I had Decker. What was it? I don't know what. Had him on the team and he did fantastic. And yeah, maybe a product of the system. And Decker, I want to. What's that?
Decker was an absolute stud in Denver, but I just Peyton Manning and Geno Smith is like night and day.
Exactly, and it's like, how much better is Monty Ball going to be just because he plays on that team? Remember those great Denver teams with Terrell Davis? Whoever you plugged and played back there was over 1,000 yards and a ton of touchdowns, and it was almost a product of the system.
Monty Ball at Wisconsin was an absolute like a bowling ball. He was a touchdown machine.
Yeah, we saw that as Buckeye fans. I had to watch that too often.
Yeah, so I mean, Monty Ball, he's kind of a wild card. I mean, there's no reason in that system with Peyton Manning, being able to drive the ball down the field that Monty Ball could easily be a top 5 running back this year. Maybe even more in the PPR league, just because obviously with Peyton they're going to throw the ball as well to him. So yeah, I mean, Monty Ball, he could go anywhere in the top 5 or 6 picks overall, or some people might let him slide to 20. He's just kind of a wild card.
Yeah, I could totally see that. And what I want to do here is I want to scoot back now because we got so what's the number again on wide receivers? Till when are we good? I know I asked you that already.
Well, I mean, if you're talking, now do you want to know like for your number 1 wide receiver or?
Well, and that's part of it too. When should certain position players be taken? Because having Andre Johnson on your team is going to help, but if you get to the point where you'd rather make a selection between, what I'm saying, just the value of the position. Like we said, there's 14 quarterbacks before there's a huge drop-off into a totally different category. That's what I mean. How many before there's a big drop-off into the next category in receiver?
Well, I mean, think about your core roster. So if you play in a league with a flex between running backs, wide receivers, and flex, that's 5 players. So running backs and wide receivers, that's where you're going to get the chunk of your points at. So let's just, for example, say from your 2 running backs, you get, again, for example, 500 points, and then you pick like Tony Romo in the 11th to 12th round. He's still going to get you the same points or close to the same points, potentially that Stafford or Andrew Luck or maybe just under Drew Brees will get. Maybe 50 points short. If you do the math, though, if you get kind of garbage running backs, but you get Peyton Manning, I think in the end that might not be so favorable. So you really want a balanced roster. You don't necessarily need to have Peyton Manning and Jimmy Graham and then have absolute garbage running backs and receivers. So it's kind of getting a balance, but understanding the core of your roster, and it should mainly be running backs, wide receivers, and then just try to get obviously the best quarterback and tight end you can.
So I think then we said right around the Wes Welker, Percy Harvin, Michael Crabtree, Torrey Smith range, Deshaun Jackson, Roddy White. That's where the drop off starts.
Well, your top tier wide receivers are probably going to be, again, I'm just looking at ESPN's cheat sheet. Calvin Johnson through arguably Pierre Garçon for number 1, and then your second tier is Keenan Allen through maybe Torrey Smith or something like that. Again, just kind of depends on the league you're in. Right.
Yeah, because it's interesting though, because if you listen to it, Mike, I believe, if I'm not putting words in your mouth, and my notes are a little better than having to ask you a second time to get me down to number 14, Pierre Garçon, Keenan Allen. You said there were good quarterbacks up until 14. You said there were good wide receivers up until 14. So the first 2 positions we covered, you're saying the good ones are right in there, top 14.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It just depends on the position you're looking at and whether it's PPR or what have you. But it looks like this year top 15 wide receivers and quarterbacks will be your your tiers 1 and 2 or tier 1.
Now, over at running back, Adrian Peterson has been ginormous. He was one of the main reasons why I won the championship 2 years ago. Got him on a value, and man, was he successful for me. This kind of shows, Mike, the importance of maybe getting a player that had an injury last year, and he's going to slip in the rounds, and you're going to just come out so far ahead. But LaShawn McCoy's kind of battling an injury. Jamal Charles, we've seen that from him. Marshawn Lynch he got in trouble recently doing something stupid. Doug Martin, he's coming off of an injury. Le'Veon Bell got busted for pot. Alfred Morris had an off year last year. And Ben Tate, first year in Cleveland. Let's talk about these running backs, man. Just take it wherever you want. It's almost like there's a backstory to every potential pick in this first round.
Yeah, running back's really interesting this year. I probably did about at least 30 mock drafts or so in the last couple of weeks on various sites. Yeah, running back's tricky. You've got your top tier backs. In a standard league, it's AP, McCoy, and Charles. PPR, I would even reach out as far as Forte. And then, Eddie Lacy is right on the border, in my opinion, as far as a top tier or a second tier. And then it really gets dicey. Arian Foster, what is he? It's almost like he's kind of coming to the end. Doug Martin was supposed to blow it up, and now I've lost confidence in him. DeMarco Murray last year had a great year, but he's been off injured, and I'm just not confident. And then there's just a slew of backs: Le'Veon Bell, Alfred Morris, Reggie Bush, Ben Tate, just kind of question marks. So it does get really dicey this year with running backs. It's really interesting. So you'll just have to kind of, do a little research and do a few mock drafts prior and just, I guess, just hope for the best. Real dicey at running back.
You have Ray Rice down at 23.
Yeah,
have you ever seen Ray Rice down there? He had a horrible year last year, and he got in trouble doing stupid stuff. And he's down in the 23. That guy was number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5. How many of the past how many years?
Yeah, Ray Rice, I think a couple of years ago was probably rated the number 1 back, particularly in the PPR league. And then last year, just don't know what happened. He kind of lost some of his burst as far as his speed, and the offense just kind of looked a bit stagnant. But from what I've heard, he looks pretty good this year in preseason. Obviously he's going to be suspended for the first 2 games. So if you can deal with that, you might be able to find some value with Ray Rice, maybe in the 5th or 6th round if he's still there. It's maybe worth a shot.
Now, I'm one of those guys that took Trent Richardson. I think he was my number 1 overall pick. We need that. We need that. I don't know, like an archive or a timeline or something, so we can get like. Do they save that stuff in your fantasy league? Like you can go back years and kind of see how the draft happened to refresh your memory?
I know on Yahoo you can. On ESPN, I've really never tried to, so I'm not sure.
Okay.
But I know on Yahoo you can certainly look at previous years.
The reason I brought up is because I'm one of those idiots that took Trent Richardson. I believe it was my number 1 pick. I forget what number overall, but I liked what I saw. I was so excited for it, and then you saw him get traded. Hasn't really found his own over in Indianapolis, but then there was an injury in Indianapolis, a season ender, so whether they wanted to give Trent Richardson this big of an opportunity or not, he's getting it. Do you think we're going to get anything out of Richardson, or, the past 2 years we're going to get what we're going to get?
Well, they did ship Donald Brown off of San Diego. He was a guy that was certainly cutting into Trent's productivity. So the only guy that you really have to worry about is Ahmad Bradshaw, but I'm not sure if he has a lot left. Trent Richardson, he's young. He's certainly capable. I think last year you certainly saw the fact that he didn't really get to the Indianapolis offense yet. He was kind of just not really into it. So I think with a full off season under his belt,
and a smart quarterback, a smart Stanford quarterback that can explain it and be the on-field coach, making sure that you're in the right spots. The thing that Peyton Manning always did. He made his players better. The same thing Johnny Manziel looks like a deer in headlights over. you're not going to get the playbook right away unless you've been trained this way from the Harbaugh tree over in Stanford, going into a very successful system in Indianapolis at the time. Having a smart quarterback is so crucial. You know?
Yeah, exactly. Andrew Luck's going to get it done. He's going to move the ball down the field. They've got talented wide receivers, T.Y. Hilton, Hakeem Nicks, and Reggie Wayne. They have two really good tight ends. I know they've upgraded the offensive line a little bit over the past few years. So Trent Richardson, if it's going to happen, I think it's going to be this year. But I'm not completely sold on him just because.
Yeah, he burned me enough. I can't believe we got that extra first-round pick out of it. Actually, let's parlay that pick a little bit, bounce back over to wide receivers. Sorry for doing this, but it's stream of consciousness right now. I didn't ask you, Sammy Watkins. What are we going to see from him this year?
Sammy Watkins,
plays in a cold weather city, number one.
Obviously, he has the talent to get it done. He absolutely torched people like Clemson. The problem is going to be E.J. Manuel, their quarterback. He's, in my opinion, kind of garbage. His accuracy just plain sucks. But, they drafted him high. He obviously has some talent coming out of college. So Sammy Watkins, again, a wild card. He could have a nice, solid year. He could have a bad year, and I think it all just depends on their quarterback.
Okay, now I want to play this game, and I felt the same way. I just didn't understand why the Bills were trading assets that they can't afford because they're not a great team. You've heard people say that they're not a player away. Why did they mortgage that much for that guy with a quarterback like this? Or maybe they think that quarterback's going to get that much better if they could surround him with a beast. It'll really open things up. Who knows? That's why you play the game. But I want to do this. I want to go backward from Ray Rice. I just want like a quick burst of what you expect out of the player. I'm going to go backward, counting down 22, 21, 20 with Ray Rice. So let's do a stream of consciousness right now, talking about the running backs, to get an idea of who they are and what to expect this year. You ready?
Sure.
Toby Gerhart, Jacksonville.
Toby Gerhart, to me, is like a Peyton Hillis clone. He's slow. He's powerful, but I think he's more of a career backup. I don't really understand how he's the starter there. I could maybe see 800 yards and, 7 touchdowns or so out of him.
We talked about Richardson. Andre Ellington, Cardinals.
Well, according to their offensive coordinator, they're going to build that offense around him. Whether he's ready to be a number one back, I don't know. He's only 5'9". I don't even think he weighs 200 pounds. So
hey, Barry Sanders,
Yeah, I don't really like Carson Palmer, so I'm kind of on the fence with Andre Ellington. I'd take him or leave him.
Frank Gore.
Frank Gore, he's basically always good for at least 1,000 yards and 7 touchdowns or so. The problem is they've got a ton of depth behind him. I forget who they drafted last year, running back. I know they got Carlos Hyde this year, but
was that Marcus Lattimore?
I think Lattimore. But there's someone else in there too. I forget who it was. Either way, there's just a lot of depth behind him. So Frank Gore, I'd be okay with maybe as my number 2 or flex, but that's about it.
Okay, I'm gonna look that up while we talk, so we can make sure we have that. C.J. Spiller.
Oh God, C.J. Spiller's got all the talent in the world. If their head coach Doug Marrone would commit to him, the problem is Fred Jackson is still pretty decent, and they also signed Bryce Brown in off season. So again, if Spiller would get the workload, he could be a top 5 back, but I think he's about right at number 18 there.
Okay, yeah, check this out. And by the way, who is San Francisco's head coach?
What is that? Jim Harbaugh, I think.
I
think it's Jim Harbaugh.
Let's just say Jay Harbaugh. I know, and that's the thing you guys need to understand. When it becomes time for fantasy draft season, our brains aren't really functioning properly. Like, we go into hyper overdrive mode into these kind of stats, and it messes with, the short-term recall, I believe. We were asking about the 49ers roster at running back. Marcus Lattimore from South Carolina. They have LaMichael James from Oregon. Watch for him to do something. They have Kendall Hunter. They have Frank Gore. Carlos Hyde was drafted first round last year.
Yeah.
That backfield
loaded.
What do you think about Carlos Hyde or any of these guys? Lattimore going to get any carries? What the hell are they going to do? They are so stacked at running back theoretically.
Out of all those guys, I mean, I think Carlos Hyde probably has the most upside. I think if Gore goes down with injury, I could see Carlos Hyde coming in and, kind of being like the next Frank Gore when he was younger, kind of the typical San Francisco type back. So, again, I like Gore, but I kind of like Hyde as grab him in the 14th, 15th round, stick him on your bench and see what happens.
Yeah, because that's the point. You can't count on him for much of anything. Ryan Matthews, San Diego.
Ryan Matthews is actually in a contract year. I think he had his best season ever last year. Now, some of that may have played into the fact that, Phillip Rivers kind of pulled the season out of his butt and had a great year. Now, whether Rivers is going to replicate that again, I'm not sure I trust it.
Rivers has tons of potential. I've had him sitting on my bench as an insurance policy, just like Stafford. See, I always think it's important to have a strong second quarterback because what if you had Aaron Rodgers last year? What do you do? If you wait too long, you can't get a decent backup.
Yeah, I mean, I like to have one quarterback on my bench for sure. If you're in the middle rounds, 10th, 11th round, and you've got a Romo or a Phillip Rivers sitting there, kind of look at your options. Look at, if you were thinking originally running back or wide receiver, kind of look at the group that's available and go, well, are some of those guys going to be there next round? And if the answer is yes, you should probably go ahead and fill that second quarterback spot, or you're going to have, Sam Bradford as your backup. And Sam Bradford, in my eyes, should be on waivers all year long.
And on top of it, when you get down to that point, your bye week could crush you if you haven't considered your backup. A winnable, very important game in a competitive league. Your bye week can crush you if you have to start Sam Bradford.
Mm-hmm.
So no, I mean we'll see. I know Phillip Rivers, like I said, I've had him on my team. I've watched him. He's been a good backup policy. Will his season this year be as good to help Ryan Matthews out? I mean, we're gonna find out. What about Ben Tate's first year in Cleveland?
That's going to be a tough one. I'm not sure that the Browns have the talent at wide receiver and, in my eyes, at quarterback to be able to move the ball enough on a consistent basis. Ben Tate's he's got the talent. Whether he can stay healthy and, compensate for the lack of passing game, I'm not sure. But in my eyes, I might move Ben Tate down a few from 16, maybe down to maybe just under C.J. Spiller or Frank Gore in that range.
Gotcha. Reggie Bush?
Reggie Bush, again, I mean, you got Joyke Bell there who, from what it sounds like, he's going to get maybe a little bit more carries than Bush, but Bush will certainly be out there and maybe be a little bit more involved in the passing game. But I think Joyke Bell gets a lot of the goal line carries. Reggie Bush in a PPR league, though, I still feel pretty good at number 2 running back with him.
Yeah, the PPR makes such a big difference with him. What about Giovanni Bernard down in Cincy?
He showed flashes last year of being a really good running back. Now they did draft Jeremy Hill from LSU, and they've also got Green Ellis back there. So I would certainly expect some carries to go to those two guys from time to time.
Yeah, and that's what hurts some of these guys. You don't have Emmitt Smith like you used to.
Yeah, but I like Giovanni Bernard a lot in the PPR league, but in a standard league, maybe right where he's at. But in a PPR league, though, I'd probably move him up a few spots.
Yeah, we talked about Monty Ball. Alfred Davis. I picked him high last year, and it didn't do me much. I was fighting that position all year, trying to get production out of it. What's going to happen in Washington with an air quote healthy RG3 who still can't slide?
Well, I think Alfred Morris is pretty much locked in to get you 1,200 yards and 7 or 8 touchdowns, but he's only going to catch the ball maybe not even 10 times. So he'll get you enough points for maybe a low end number 1 running back or a high end number 2, but that's about it.
Yeah, I would. I mean, round 2, round 3. Zach Stacy. This I think I fell for the thing that happened with with Zach Stacy. I didn't know he was going to come on and take the job, so I had his backup. What do you expect out of him, or is just that Rams team going to suck so bad you're not going to see any production?
Well, they drafted Trey Mason. I believe he was from Auburn University, if I'm correct. And he was pretty good in college, so I was kind of questioning why they drafted a running back. I don't know what round he went in, but Zach Stacy's a bruising type of running back. Now that they have Sam Bradford back, he should be pretty good. I think he's safe for, I would think, 1,000 yards and potentially upwards, maybe of 10 touchdowns. Just depends on how much Trey Mason cuts into his workload. But don't like him as much in a PPR league, but in a standard league, I think right at 11 there is probably pretty safe.
Le'Veon Bell just got in some trouble. I mean, that changes things a little bit, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I mean, Le'Veon Bell's got a lot of talent. They did bring in LeGarrette Blount, though. I think he'll get plenty of carries and maybe a lot of the goal line looks. So Le'Veon Bell, I'm not crazy about. Again, in a standard league, I like him a little bit better, not so much in PPR.
DeMarco Murray?
DeMarco Murray, we touched on earlier a little bit.
Injury prone,
Yeah, he's still pretty young, but he has been injury prone. He's got a lot of speed. He can catch the ball. Just a matter of, what kind of year are the Cowboys going to have? No one really knows year in and year out. So I'd probably move him down maybe a couple spots from 9 there.
Yeah, Doug Martin, we kind of touched on him too. I mean, so you think he's a little high here at 8?
Again, Doug Martin, I think from that 1 year, everyone kind of blew it out of proportion. But he should still get a lot of carries. He certainly catches the ball a lot. I think right there is probably about right for him, maybe number 8.
Arian Foster winding down in his career. Ben Tate's gone.
Yeah, they've got a couple guys right behind them who've been getting a lot of carries. I think Jonathan Grimes in preseason, but Arian Foster is he going to be healthy or not? If he's healthy, he should put up productive numbers. Again, some of those might be kind of countered by the fact that we don't know how good Ryan Fitzpatrick's going to be in Houston. So Arian Foster could go anywhere from in the running backs from maybe 7 to maybe even down as low as 13 or 14.
Yeah. What about Eddie Lacy? What different? You heard the news today from the Packers losing a big defensive. And by the way, the Packers are Mike's team. He abandoned our Cleveland teams a long time ago because he was sick of the losing, even as a youth. And I've stuck on the crazy train, continued rooting for these teams. But Mike has celebrated championships. I have not. So he's a huge Packer fan, first and foremost. What does it make a difference now that they lost their defensive stalwart today to the offense? Are they going to get more carries? Or the game's going to be like? How does that impact if the defense can't stop the other team enough? Does that how is that going to impact the Packers' offense with Aaron Rodgers? Are they playing from behind a little bit more? Is there less time on the field, meaning less drives, meaning less snaps? How do you digest information when your defense gets hurt?
Well, I kind of, it really does suck that we lost P.J. Rodgers for the year, but
yeah, and I hate to see it. I don't like injuries in general. I don't like injuries, so I do not enjoy seeing that happen. But it definitely changes the dynamics of how the games are going to be played every year for this team.
Yeah, definitely. B.J. Rodgers, when he won the Super Bowl, I believe it was 3 years ago or so, he had a huge year that year. I think in his rookie year he was just dominant. But I'll be honest, as a Packers fan and watching basically every game the last 2 or 3 years since the Super Bowl, he doesn't seem to have quite the impact. He's not as dominant. So, again, it sucks that he lost him, but I know that the Packers generally always draft a lot of defensive linemen. I know we've got some guys right behind them who were pretty good, too. I can't think of the name off the top of my head, but the fact that we brought in Julius Peppers, Clay Matthews is healthy. We drafted Clinton Dix from Alabama at safety. I still think the Packers have a pretty good year on defense, and I think we're good to go on offense. So getting back to the running backs, I think Eddie Lacy probably has a pretty big year. I like him a lot in standard and PPR.
Yeah, I mean, so that's what you're looking at is how is he going to get the looks that he gets knowing that the defense has changed. And yeah, and then now we're getting off track with the fantasy thing, but I'll just make this final point about it. You don't know if BJ's impact, like when someone loses individual stats and they don't look as dominant, maybe the other team is forced to use two players on them, which make the other complementary players have a better opportunity for success, and they look a little bit better because they're shouldering some of that garbage, because the other team has to absolutely run their schemes based on your impact on it. We're just getting off in Crazyville because that's not fantasy football related. But do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, losing a key cog in your defense, you're gonna have to compensate other positions, and they might be able to maybe score some more points on you, and then obviously the offense will have to make up for it. So, I mean, from a fantasy perspective, maybe that's a good thing for Eddie Lacy, because he has to work a little bit harder to get some more yards and touchdowns to make up for it. So, I guess it could be a good thing.
And who else did you say that you guys drafted in the first round?
The Packers, they got Clinton Dix, the safety from Alabama.
I've been wanting to do that since it happened. And you know what? It's Simpsons week. Every episode ever on FXX. Make sure you're watching it. All right. See, it's synchronistic. Sorry, I just had to make that joke. Yeah, I mean, I like Eddie Lacy this year, but Marshawn Lynch, he got into some trouble recently. Is he still worth a 5? And he's having contract issues. I mean, I get a bad feeling about what's going on there.
I mean, if I had to take Lacy or Lynch, I mean, I'll probably take Lynch, just because he's, that offense and the defense they're both really good in Seattle. I hate to say it because Green Bay played them the first week, but, Marshawn Lynch is one of those guys. He could get 15 touchdowns without even trying. He's just a goal line beast. And I think, Russell Wilson will move the ball well enough where they'll get him in position. So, I kind of like how ESPN has it, Lynch just above Lacy, but it's pretty close.
Yeah, that's the thing about Russell Wilson. He's another smart player. They make a lot of smart plays. They really understand how to play the game. It's like the Peyton Manning. He doesn't take as many brutal hits as some, quarterbacks that are in there too soon, because he knows where the players are moving at least. He knows when to go down. He knows when to run it out of bounds. He knows when to throw it away, when to dump it at somebody's foot and just say, all right, that didn't work. Let's try it again later. I see that in Russell Wilson. I see that in Andrew Luck. And by the way, that's for that reason is why I'm really happy that the Browns are not going to start Johnny Manziel. What are your thoughts on the Browns quarterback position this year?
The Browns, Brian Hoyer certainly flashed, a little bit of time last year for sure, before he got injured. Again, it's kind of, besides Jordan Cameron, who's he going to throw the ball to? Trying to think if I can even think of the Browns' number one wide receiver besides Josh Gordon. And then Manziel, obviously character issues. Will his talent from college convert to the NFL? So certainly some question marks at the quarterback position for the Browns.
Yeah, it's going to be, but that's what I'm talking about though. Mainly from the quarterback position is I don't want to see Johnny Manziel running around there. Johnny being Johnny. Oh, it's just Johnny football. No, it's a dude that doesn't know what he's doing, and he's going to get his head taken off if you're not careful. This playbook is way complex, and when you see Andrew Luck transition, it's because what they ran at Stanford was a pro-style offense that you could handle with all the vernacular. It's a big transition to get that right away. So I think a lot goes into the success of a quarterback depending on how they came up and what experience they had. The Browns have a lot of potential this year. And their defense, that's the thing. The Browns' defense is going to keep them in games all year round. I know it's a fantasy football show, but it's also a Cleveland sports show. What do you make of the Browns' defense? Switching out at linebacker, going and getting Dante Whitner, re-signing Joe Hayden. What do you make of it?
I think the Browns' defense could be pretty good. I mean, you've got Hayden, Justin Gilbert, and then what's his last name? Desir. I think he's from a Division II school at cornerback.
Yeah, Pierre Desir.
Yeah, you bring in Dante Whitner, hard-hitting safety, Carlos Danzy, I believe former Pro Bowler, I think. Yeah, I mean, the Browns defense could certainly be good. Problem is that they're going to play, high-scoring teams like New Orleans or what have you. I mean, I just don't see it. I just don't see them keeping up with them.
I don't know. I mean, if you have Justin Gilbert, Justin Gilbert taken number 1, by the way, above Johnny Manziel, above, taken, I think he went number 7 or number 9. I got to double check. But, I mean, those are 3 amazing defensive backs with Whitner and Joe Hayden and your number 1 overall pick. We might make it real damn tough for another team to throw on us, which sends them into what? They have to try to run it on us. Well, guess what? Our linebackers and our defensive line are pretty tough, too. I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised to see the Browns' defense really change the dynamics of how often and how the Browns' offense operates. I think they're going to get a lot of looks, and I don't think they're going to be in too many shootouts. But those running wide receivers you were talking about, the Browns went out and signed Miles Austin, Nate Burleson, and Andrew Hawkins. Andrew Hawkins from Toledo, got him from Cincinnati. He has some skill. I mean, he's getting a shot. We'll see what he can do with it. Nate Burleson, obviously, we know from the Lions over the past few years, and Miles Austin from the Cowboys. What do you make of that receiving core right there for the Browns?
Again, I'd like to see Josh Gordon not suspended.
I know.
I mean, if you put Josh Gordon and Jordan Cameron out there, okay, now we're talking. But, I mean, Miles Austin, Nate Burleson, I mean, Miles Austin, I kind of want to say he's kind of washed up. Nate Burleson was, when he had success, it was always he had Megatron on the other side of the ball. And then who was the other guy you said?
Andrew Hawkins, young kid from the Bengals.
I mean, he certainly flashed some talent in Cincinnati last year. He's got some speed. So, again, you've got 3, pretty average wide receivers. If you can get Josh Gordon in there and have a true number 1,
right,
then we're talking. But until you get Josh Gordon in there, I know they have a good defense, but I'm going to take a stab here. I'm going to guess no better than 8-8. Maybe if they get Josh Gordon back, maybe 9-7. But that'd be my guess right now.
Gotcha. My prediction is the Browns are going to go undefeated and win the Super Bowl.
Oh, really? You want to put a bet on that?
Look, I'm saying that's my prediction. What is this betting thing that you're talking about? I don't know. I'm not so sure. Let's jump over to tight ends here. Where's the drop off? Where's that first cluster of awesome guys bounce down to guys?
Well, you've got your tier A, tier number 1. Obviously, is Jimmy. Well, Jimmy Graham's really in a tier by himself. He's in a PPR league. He actually scored more points than Calvin Johnson last year, if you can believe it.
Wait, say that one more time. More than Calvin Johnson
in a PPR league. Jimmy Graham actually scored, I think, like 1 more point than Calvin Johnson had last year.
Wow, and that's why he went to arbitration. Is he a tight end or is he a wide receiver? What did you make of that decision? Because that was an interesting court case. I don't know if you happen to notice that.
I caught a little bit of it. I really didn't read too much.
I mean,
it
came down to Jimmy Graham looking for a new contract and saying he wants to be paid like a wide receiver because he catches wide receiver numbers. They go so far as to look at his player profile on his Twitter page, and it says tight end for Saints. As soon as that became an issue, he changed it to pass catcher or something like that, professional football catcher. Or something like that. But that's what you're saying. A Jimmy Graham is just as valuable as a Calvin Johnson in a PPR league. That's something to consider. That is a very important point to consider. I mean, I think you had Julius Thomas last year, and you reaped the benefits. Talk about some of the other good tight ends here.
Well, again, Jimmy Graham's in a class by himself, and then your second tier are really close to, what would normally be a top-tier tight end if you didn't have Jimmy Graham. You've got Julius Thomas or arguably Gronkowski. If Gronkowski's healthy, I almost would rank him right, maybe just above Julius Thomas. But your 3 really dominant tight ends should be Graham, Gronkowski, and Thomas really just because he played with Peyton Manning. And then you've got a little bit of a drop off. Your next tier, Vernon Davis, Jason Witten, Jordan Cameron. Greg Olson's probably right in there as well. I think he puts up pretty comparable numbers to Jordan Cameron. And then you've got a little bit of a drop-off, Pitta, Rudolph, Jordan Reed. And then you're really getting into some guys that really shouldn't even be drafted, Delaney Walker, Zach Ertz. Now, one guy that people maybe have written off, I don't understand why. I know he's getting old, but Antonio Gates, I think he still had 70 or 80 catches last year, so you could probably get him in the 15th round, and I think in a PPR league, if you're looking for late value at tight end, I'll take Antonio Gates in the 15th round if he's there.
Yeah. Jordan Cameron, though, is he going to really suffer without having Josh Gordon? Is he too high at 6? Because they're not going to be airing it out on the other side of the field to Josh Gordon, which opens it up across the middle for Jordan Cameron. I mean, is that going to make a big impact or not so much? We're still going to see badass stuff from him.
Well, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Jordan Cameron did a lot of his damage when Hoyer was actually playing last year. So if Hoyer stays healthy, I know Josh Gordon may not be in there for a while or what have you, but I think Cameron's got the talent to still put up, maybe 60 to 70 catches for 800 yards and 6 or 7 touchdowns at the minimum. So he's certainly worth, where he's at. He's just in the top 100 overall players, so that's probably about right for him.
Yeah. Well, let's move over to, I don't know, what do we have to say about kickers and special teams? At what point do you finally, because you always, anybody that's done fantasy football, you know what happens. You go round after round after round, and all of a sudden somebody picks a defense, somebody picks a kicker, and then everybody grabs their kicker and their defense. What are you looking at in the kicker realm? Where are the good players? Where's the drop-offs here?
Well, we won't spend too much time on kickers. I'll just tell you my philosophy on kickers. I'm not taking one until my very last pick, 16th round or 15th, whatever the last round is. I've seen, someone will take Matt Prater, the number 1 kicker, according to ESPN. They'll take him in like the 9th round just to fill the roster spot and go, oh, I got the best kicker. Well, I think I read an article on ESPN from Matthew Berry that said the difference between the number 1 kicker and the number 7 kicker was like 3 or 4 points. So it's just like, I would just recommend wait till your last pick and just look at your cheat sheet and just take the best kicker available.
Because why is that then? You think it's better to take a flyer on a wide receiver or running back or an extra quarterback now because the kickers are so damn interchangeable, and if you have an injury to your number 2 or number 3 wide receiver, you got to bring somebody up off your bench. And if you're waiting to pick someone up off of waivers, you could be scraping the bottom of the trash bin for that, and it would be better off having that as an insurance policy. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Well, kickers, they just fluctuate so much every year. I mean, this year, Dan Bailey could be the number 1 kicker.
Matt Bryant could.
Yeah, number 10. So, I'd rather take a 14th round pick on like Andre Williams, running back for the Giants, had a good preseason. They brought in Rashad Jennings. But Andre Williams at Boston College tore it up. I'd rather take a chance on him and then just, in the last round pick who's ever left at kicker. So, you got to stockpile running backs and receivers on your bench. You don't need to waste the 9th round or 10th round pick on a kicker to just take one last.
Now, what about the defense? Obviously, we watched Seattle win a championship with their 12th man. How differently do you value defenses then compared to kickers?
Well, Seattle's kind of like the Jimmy Graham of defenses. So Seattle's, again, they're kind of in a league of their own. Where do you take them though? I think a good spot to take Seattle. Maybe 8th or 9th round, depending on who you've taken so far. And then after that, I'll probably wait until the 2nd to last round. I'll take my defense and my kicker if I didn't take Seattle earlier. Reason being is kind of an interesting stat. The Carolina Panthers and the Kansas City Chiefs in most fantasy leagues last year weren't even drafted. They were actually picked up off free agent waiver wires, and they ended up being, I think, both top 5 defenses. So, this year it could be the Baltimore Ravens are the number 2 defense, and no one drafted them. So it's kind of like kickers; they just kind of interchange a lot.
Huh. A lot of fluctuation, basically.
Yeah, so it's just kind of a gut feel on which one you like, but I'm not going to reach high for a defense unless I'm really feeling good about like maybe my top 7 or 8 picks, and then I'm like, you know what? I'd love to have that dominant Seattle defense, and I can wait on some other guys. Then I'm going to go with Seattle, but it's got to be at the right time in the draft. I've got to feel good about my core running backs and wide receivers. And if Seattle's there at the right time, I'll take him. Otherwise, I'm going to wait.
So I shouldn't take him with my number 1 pick?
What's that? Oh, yeah, you don't want to take a defense.
No, I'm kidding. You're not going to see me do that, although I felt that stupid taking Trent Richardson. Boy, oh boy. Anyhow, that being said, sleepers. This is something you got to talk about on a fantasy football show. Who other, we know the big names. We know the flashy rookies. We know the players that might do well. Who might we be surprised by this year? What quarterback had an off year that might be good this year? What wide receiver is going to emerge out of what system, and what running back should we keep our eye on?
I'll try to make this kind of quick for you. I will start at quarterback. Maybe not a sleeper name, but Andy Dalton down at number 17 there. He put up some pretty impressive stats last year. I think definitely over 4,000 yards and definitely over 30 touchdowns. And he's sitting there at number 17 on ESPN's quarterback list. I actually like him, definitely better than Cutler or Roethlisberger. So if you're looking for a late-round quarterback that'll, certainly going to pass the ball out there in Cincinnati. So if you're going to wait on the quarterback, you could probably get Dalton in the, maybe 13th, 14th, or 15th round.
Gotcha. Any other quarterbacks jump out or move to running back?
Quarterback, it does get kind of dull down there, so I'll probably stick with just Dalton.
It gets kind of dull. Around the Chad Henneys, Matt Schaubs, Geno Smithses, the E.J. Manuels, and the Kirk Cousinses. Yeah. Okay, running back.
Let's see here. Going down the list. At running back, I kind of like, I was talking about him earlier, Trey Mason down at on ESPN, looks like number 60 running back, rookie in the Rams. Again, huge career at Auburn. And Zach Stacy, I'm not sold completely on him being the go-to back. Let's just say he gets hurt. I think Trey Mason could step in and have a decent year there. So.
Okay. Wide receiver.
Let's see. Wide receiver. Kind of like Tavon Austin at number 49.
I got burned with him last year.
Yeah,
he's a bum.
They had some quarterbacks playing quarterback for them I never heard of. They've got Bradford back. Tavon Austin's kind of like a Piercy Harvin clone. Again, I like him more in a PPR.
Oh yeah, he's incredible with his kick returns. He's a very, very explosive player. Just I didn't get a lot out of him last year.
Yeah, so I kind of like him this year as a sleeper.
Yeah. Anybody else? Any other? What about Philadelphia? Second year in the system. Could you see crazy numbers? What do you think about the Eagles? What do you do with Nick Foles? What do you do with their receivers now that Deshaun Jackson's gone?
I think Nick Foles should have a pretty decent year. I don't think he'll match what he did last year. I think the interception total will probably go up. Guys like Riley Cooper and Jason Avant, I think could have really good years. Just the fact that they brought in Sproles, he's not going to take all the receptions. So, Riley Cooper and Jason Avant, you can get those guys pretty late. So.
Yeah, it's like Riley Cooper, Sammy Watkins. Quick, who do you take?
Definitely got Sammy Watkins. Just based on the pure talent, the pure upside.
Yeah, you're going to see them lob it up to him. Maybe just like the Lions, maybe like Megatron. Something similar. A lot of opportunities there because they're going to need it. All right, so have we covered every angle we want to address fantasy football from, or is there any other tips and strategies and tricks and experience you've learned over the years? What makes your teams, annually competitive?
Fantasy football is a lot of luck. The best, what you need to do is put the best team out there, and really, again, hope for some luck. You've got to work the waiver wire throughout the year. You gotta look for those guys who are kind of coming out of nowhere. Last year, I picked up Nick Foles, Keenan Allen, and Julius Thomas, and I had never heard of those guys until
Mike,
last year.
those were enormous moves for you last year.
Yeah, so, and right there, it won me a fantasy championship.
Yeah, thanks for reminding me.
I'm sorry, but
jerk.
Yeah, so you've got those guys who are kind of coming out of nowhere and just really putting up some good stats. If they do it for a couple games, put them on your bench, and if they turn into a Keenan Allen or Julius Thomas, then you're golden. Stick them in your starting lineup. Look for, if you've got 2 or 3 good quarterbacks on your roster, look at a team who has kind of garbage quarterbacks. If they're starting, Matt Schaub or, Sam Bradford, and you've got someone like Romo as your second quarterback, see if you can get, make a trade to improve another position. You have to be active, and you have to look at free agents, and if you do that, all you need is a little bit of luck.
Let me ask you about the trades. I love trades. I think they're fantastic. Obviously, we discussed the Kevin Love trade to the Cavaliers. How can you encourage more trades? Should you avoid trades? What are your feelings? Because I love wheeling and dealing. How about this for that? Hey, what about that? And just constantly getting that. How can you encourage a league to do more trading?
You can't necessarily encourage a league to do more trading, I don't think.
Well, I just mean through your actions. If you want to see a more open league with, hey, let's swap that guy for that guy, cool. Oh man, I'm low for this week on my bye week. Let's swap these guys. I don't know. Is there any? Do you do a lot of trades?
I try to stay active on the message boards. If I've got an abundance of wide receivers and I'm looking to get a quarterback, I'll kind of put a message, something like that. Hey, I've got Calvin Johnson and 3 other good receivers. I'm looking for a quarterback. Shoot me some trade offers. I might just start on other people's teams if I'm looking for one particular position, and I might just throw out a trade to those 4 or 5 teams, and if one of them hits, then that's great. But
yeah, because I put it out there. Like at some point, I realized I'm just going to have to roll with Drew Brees, Matt Stafford. We got through the bye week, nothing's happening. I got to trade him. And I couldn't find the takers for him. And I had interest, but they wanted too much back from my side, or not what I was looking for. And I just kept him as an insurance policy. And I had like 3 or 4. I had multiple trade offers, and I had other trade offers on the telephone, just like, hey, would you do it for this, or what about that? Couldn't make it happen. So I guess where I'm coming from is I love trades, and I want to do more of them, I guess.
Yeah, and, that's a good situation that we can talk about here for a minute. So, let's just say for some reason you end up with Peyton Manning and, Andrew Luck or Cam Newton. Somehow you end up with both those players on your roster after the draft. More than likely, you're probably, you might want to wait a few weeks just to make sure your Peyton Manning doesn't get hurt or something. But at some point, you're going to have to trade away Cam Newton. If you can trade Cam Newton for like a Jordy Nelson or someone who's already stacked a wide receiver and really needs a quarterback, you have to make that move. You can't just sit there with Peyton Manning and Cam Newton. You've got to improve your roster through trades if you're stacked at one position like that.
I know, man. I was trying like hell. It was that Alfred Morris position that made my running back position so weak, which put tension on my flex position. And and that's the thing. You might have Cam Newton and you might have Andrew Luck on your same team, and in week 3, X quarterback from X team goes down with a blown ACL. That person that lost their starter would now be willing to trade you a decent value instead of putting E.J. Manuel in off of waiver wires or going with Geno Smith if they didn't prepare themselves right. So I mean it is important. I don't know, man. I'm really looking forward to this season. Do we still have? Yeah. We have a league with 8 teams. Should we try to find 2 more? Because I have 2 people that said that they're interested. They might want to jump in.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think that everyone in that particular league would really prefer to have 10. I know that our buddy Trevor texted me earlier and said that he might have 1, but obviously we can't have an odd number. We need an even number. So
yeah, I have 2 that have reached out that might want to jump in. I'll tell you what. I'll call you off air because we got to talk about double check because I'm having tech issues with my cell phone. It's a long story, so I can't really run my league how I'm used to. So I got to figure out another option. We need to go over what days, which leagues are drafting, and I got a draft coming up here in a couple hours, so I got to kind of get ready for it. So, all right, Mike, I appreciate your time, buddy. Do you want people to follow you? Do you tweet football stuff on Twitter? Do you do anything there?
Actually, I am not on Twitter, so unfortunately, I do not have an account at all. So you'll just have to listen to this show over and over and over again.
You used to have a Twitter account. What about this? Would you be interested in perhaps a weekly fantasy football show? A quick one, like a 20-minute. Go over what's going on this week, what to watch for.
It's possible. I'm in a new record, seven leagues this year.
I know mine's gone up every year. It was 1, then it was 1.5, now it's 2.5. Or no, now it's 3 because it's 2 half leagues. I don't know. It's crazy.
I'll certainly consider it, but I may have to be back in that one. And Brian, just FYI, our touchdown there draft is tomorrow night at 9 o'clock. I wasn't sure if you're aware of that or not.
Which one is that?
Touchdown there on ESPN.
Okay, TD there is 6 p.m. Pacific?
Yeah, 6 p.m. Pacific tomorrow night.
All right. Awesome. Yeah, that's a league. That's the one where Mike beat us out by 0.4 points or whatever last year. Yeah. Anyhow, Mike, I appreciate your time, buddy. We'll talk with you again soon, perhaps this year, or maybe every couple of weeks. Check in on the fantasy front. Nothing.
Right,
We'll commit to nothing, but we'll consider it. All right, pal.
Good to be on, man.
All right. Thanks, Mike. You take care. And everybody, thank you so much for listening to the program. My name is Brian Engelman here on the TNAM Radio Network. Check out our homepage at thenewamericanmedia.com. On the bottom right, it has our Facebook and our Twitter. Twitter's at American_media_. On Facebook, you can just search it the normal way and like the page. Subscribe to youtube.com/thenewamericanmedia. I want to wish you all good luck in your upcoming fantasy football drafts, but not too much luck so it defeats me. I'm Brian, signing out for everybody. Special thanks to Mike Murray here on the Unhappy Hour.